several people that would like to get out and speak about it. We have Valerie, Sabella, Diane, Lindquist, and Rachael and Haley Peterson. Can you all come up, please? Why don't you all come up at the same time? Val, there you are.
Hello, my name is Haley, and this is my sister Rachael. And as if you don't know, our dad is Jim Peterson. We would like to begin by saying Happy Father's Day, Dad, and to all the fathers out there, father figures and mentors.
Today we were asked to speak about our dad and how he has impacted our lives. I think that we can all agree that he is goofy, loud-spoken, set in his military ways man who thinks he's always right and loves to follow the process.
The church committee, you know what we're talking about.
Our dad has always pushed us to set goals and accomplish them to the best of our abilities. I think we can both agree that the greatest impact he has had on our lives is planting a seed of faith in our hearts at a young age. He has helped each of us along our spiritual journeys and continues to do so by being an active member of the church and choir community and by giving us a military wake-up call every Sunday morning.
Growing up in the Peterson household consisted of school, work, homework, and extracurriculars. But remember, work before play. We want to thank you, Dad, for instilling a great work ethic in us. Even though we consistently fought you and procrastinated a lot. Our dad would say there's enough time between 12 at night and 6 in the morning.
Dad, from the very beginning, has supported us in every moment of our lives, even the ones where things went horribly wrong. We knew when we came home and needed someone to talk to, we would be treated with open arms and a kiss on the head. In some cases, it would come with, "And I'm disappointed in you, you're grounded." But it would always end with, "I love you."
For those of you who don't know, our dad is also the biggest geek. He loves spending time with his family and friends and our dog Buster. But he also loves his superheroes and wishes he was Captain America. But no matter his title, he will always be the greatest hero to us. Thank you for everything you do. We love you.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thanks. So when I was first approached by a few deacons to take part today in this Father's Day service, I wasn't sure if I had the strength to carry on with that request. I had just lost my dad in April, so it's my first Father's Day without him here, but I do want to honor him, and I just prayed that I would get the strength to carry through, and I have it, so here we go. So I'm just going to start off with just a little bit of family history, just dad history. My dad joined the Navy when he was 17 years old. He was in World War II, fought for the country, and then he also served in the Korean War. As soon as he got through with this tour, he met my mom. And my mom and dad dated for about a year and got married, purchased a house in the small town of Easton, Massachusetts, and they started a family. We all know we can't pick our parents, but if I had any say in it, I would have definitely picked my parents. They're beautiful. They were both beautiful parents. So we all also know that it's really hard to raise children. My parents always said that they were blessed with 4 daughters. I questioned that often. I was never sure about that statement. Raising 4 daughters must have been quite a handful, and they made it seem very easy. During the weekdays, my dad left the house early in the morning and worked long days at retail stores. On the return home from his workday, we all greeted him with hugs and kisses. He was the king of the castle. We took turns bringing him his slippers when we were young, cold glasses of water, and the newspaper. After he read the paper, he would rest for a few minutes and watch TV with us while Mom prepared dinner. After dinner, Dad would always entertain us with games and jokes and reading bedtime stories. I remember both of my parents would always be present when it was time to go to bed and be tucked in, and they would both pray with us before it was time to turn off the lights. Talking about my dad today gives me a beautiful, rather special opportunity to appreciate and honor him and the influence he had on my life. I was so blessed to have such a loving father. He made everyone who came into our house feel very welcomed. I had so many friends that wanted to be adopted by my mom and dad. They just always wanted to be with us. He had so many friends, and he greeted everyone he met with a friendly greeting, a handshake, a smile, or even a warm hug. When Dad greeted you with kindness, he shared God's goodness with you. My father was a teacher, an inspiration, a warm touch, and a loving presence in my life. He taught us all how to love one another. We shared so many special moments together. To name a few, we would go to the local donut shop on Sunday mornings. I was the oldest daughter, so I get to go for the joyride and get the dozen yummy donuts to bring home to the family for breakfast. Dad took me to my first football game, my first Bruins game. He taught me how to ride a bike, how to catch fireflies and dragonflies, how to ice skate, and even drive the car. That was Dad's job. Dad loved all the New England sports teams. We watched so many sports teams together over the years. Anyone that stopped by the house for a visit with him would get an update on his favorite sports moments of the week. I think he could have filled in for Jerry Remy as the broadcaster for the Red Sox. He loved to have fun. He looked forward to his weekends so he could catch up with family and friends. Saturday afternoons, our families would all pile into the station wagon, and we would go for the joyrides. Most of the time, we would end up in Brant Rock or Wareham. We would take long walks on the beach and collect seashells and other treasures. My parents made summers so special for us. I have so many great memories of our summers together. They were constantly hosting backyard cookouts for neighbors and family members. We would play all the fun games in the backyard late into the evening: tag, horseshoes, baseball, volleyball, and more. We would toast marshmallows and make s'mores. We would pitch tents and try to sleep out overnight, but I don't think we ever made it. We would vacation for a few weeks each year at Lake Winnipesaukee, and we also attended Vacation Bible School every year. When we were old enough, we were sent to Camp Fireside, which was a Christian camp located in New Hampshire. That was a great place to spend time during the summer. A few special moments, real special moments to me. I remember my dad's 75th birthday. An upside down rainbow appeared out of nowhere. And I remember a lot of people saying, geez, that must be his dad smiling down on him. And I said, no, I think it's the Lord smiling down on him. He is just an amazing, wonderful, grateful man. So, and then when my parents were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary, the pastor said to him, you're a wealthy man. You have been blessed with so many family members and friends that are here attending and celebrating this special day. Dad had so many friends that we would joke around if the town of Easton ever did turn into a city and needed a mayor, he'd be the one. So many great memories. During the last few years of my dad's life, his mind was still sharp and his body was weak. He had to stop attending church, but he watched church services on TV. I started bringing him copies of the church's newsletter and the church bulletins. He loved reading about the life of our church and loved the fact that it was such an active church. Last summer, my dad came down with pneumonia. It took a lot of his strength away. He regained a bit of it for the next few months, and we were able to visit with him a few times each week. I thanked God for each week for letting me have another visit with my dad. We were able to watch more sports games together and catch up with family news. We reminisced a lot about family vacations. This past winter, he got very sick and was diagnosed with his heart failure. He was nearing the end of his life. Dad's faith and love for the Lord continued to shine brightly. Dad was alert and able to spend time talking with everyone he loved. With that extra time, it gave everybody the opportunity to go see him one last time. He let us know how much we meant to him, how much he loved us. We thought that Dad was going to be going home to the Lord in December, but God blessed us all and gave us a few more months together. He actually went home and moved to the Lord on April 8th, the week after Easter Sunday. So we had Easter Sunday together. The Friday morning before he passed was still an amazing day to me. He knew he was going home to the Lord. When he got cleaned up by the hospice aide and laid back into bed, he, kidding around, said, we thought he was kidding around, said, why don't you take my Gillette razor that you love shaving me with and use it on your other patients because you hate those disposable razors. And the aide said, Jack, no, I'm not going to take your razor. I'll be back here. I'm wanting to take care of you. And my dad said, I won't be here Monday. The Lord's taking me home Sunday. So that just, my faith just became so much stronger that day. And on Saturday, the last day that he was at all able to speak and touch our hands and actually squeeze our hands, his pastor stopped by and Dad didn't say a word. He slept through. We thought he was totally asleep during the whole presentation from the pastor, his service. And we sung some hymns. And as the pastor was leaving, he said, God bless you, Jack. I don't know if you heard anything I said, but we all love you and Godspeed. And my dad sat up after not saying a word all day and said, I heard every word. Thank you and goodbye. That was it. And he passed on Sunday. He was called home. Through my eyes, my dad was so great, so good, and so faultless. Faultless. He made this world a better place for all who knew him. Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 7 is Dad's favorite passage. I just wanted to read it. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again. Rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. This Father's Day, take the opportunity to seek blessings for your Father with a special prayer of gratitude. Thank you.
Wow. I'll tell you, there are some awesome dads. Jim, like you win a prize. We are blessed people. We have great legacies and great stories. And Wendy, thanks for that psalm. It's so perfect. It's so perfect to realize that we don't have to be perfect. It's we're all people in progress, and I think that's a little bit of the theme that I have going on. And when I tell the story of dads, I couldn't decide which dad, because when Ken and I got married, his dad invited me to call him Dad. So I looked and I said, I have my dad, I have my other dad, and I have Ken, who is the father of my kids. So I decided to create a story that involves all of these three men who are important and powerful figures in my life. I found a man whose background is really similar to mine. Our dads, his father's name is Ken also, and my dad, who is Bob Bouvier, are really similar. His dad was from Brooklyn. He was the grandson of Sicilian immigrants. My dad was in Hartford, Connecticut, and he was the son of French-Canadian immigrants. They were both good Catholic people. Ken's dad was a plumber. Ken's father's dad was a plumber. My father's dad was a barber. Both of these boys grew up during the Great Depression. They knew World War II, the Korean War. They both served in the Navy. They each married a beautiful woman. They worked hard. They became successful businessmen, and they raised 6 children each. They both ended up living in the Hartford area, and Ken and I are each the oldest of 6. So it looks like we have a lot in common. However, Ken and Bob found it really hard to be friends because in spite of everything that they had in common, there were a few things that were different about them. Ken's dad was a mover and a shaker. He had a big personality. He was kind of an aggressive personality. And my dad was the kind of guy that liked to disappear. He liked to blend in. He didn't like to make waves. And because they were both successful in their own right, it made them kind of like rivals, a little bit like competitors. So they were always a little bit goading each other. And sometimes Ken and I were caught in the crossfire. But I'm going to backtrack. One of my earliest memories is I was a very young child, I was a toddler. I'm going to guess I was maybe 4 years old because my sister was with me and she was 2 and we were each on my father's shoulders. We were at his brother's cottage house and he was wading into the lake. And as he was wading with us, he lost his footing and ended up in a hole. And he was in over his head. So I was old enough to sense that something was wrong because we never talked about it, but I remember it. And he held us up and he struggled and kept us above the water until he found his footing. But we never talked about the fear, the struggle. And in my mind, that's an analogy for what life is like for a lot of dads. These men, both of our dads, worked really, really hard. They had high-pressure jobs. They were trying to make ends meet. They had big families. And I bet you that there were many times when Bob and Ken felt that they were in over their heads. But they were part of that generation that didn't complain. They didn't whine. They didn't talk about what was going on. I bet you my dad prayed, but he never talked about it. And they never talked about anything. They just kept moving forward, having a stiff upper lip, doing what was right in their eyes, trying to move their family forward. Now, I'm going to fast forward quite a bit, many years. My husband, Ken, is a young adult. He moves out west, goes to school, goes to college, and then he has an experience with God. He gets converted. And it is such a big change, such a positive change in his life that Ken and Marge, his parents, decide to send another brother out who was a troubled teenager. And he had big troubles, so they send the other brother out, and that other brother comes back transformed and on fire. And he waltzes into my Catholic school and is invited to share his testimony in my religion class. And that's where I gave my life to God. I was 15 at the time. So Ken's experience, my husband's experience in Oregon, had this domino effect in the family. It kind of reverberated all through the family. Then, fast forwarding even more, because there's a lot of story in between, but there's no time, Ken and I end up getting married. We're on the mission field in Guatemala. So you can tell there's a lot of history in between. And after 10 years of being on the mission field in Guatemala, 9 for me, 11 for him, so we call it 10. We get back, and tragedy hits. We were hired to work at the New Testament school in Cedarville. And the summer before that, we were just kind of killing time waiting for school to start, and we took a job at a Finnish Christian summer camp in Carver. And there was a misunderstanding. In retrospect, we can't explain it. But we had 2 children, and our little 3-year-old daughter drowned. And it was devastating. We didn't know anybody. We were brand new. We were new at the church. We were going to the New Testament church in Cedarville. And we were teaching classes. And somebody ran to tell us that she was in the lake and that she had drowned. And it was just stunning and devastating. And so we have to tell this horrible news and the irony of it, because we were just 10 years in a war-torn country and managed to get out unscathed. And then we come back to safety and we lose a child. So we come back, we do the funeral service, and my husband was a rock. He was able to sing the songs, the hymns that anchored us and anchored our faith, that held us through. And I'm not going to say it was easy. The grief process was devastating. However, we made statements through those hymns, through those declarations. And there was something that changed, something pivotal that changed that day when we buried her in the graveyard right behind the church. Our dads our very competitive, slightly macho dads who were devastated by this. All of a sudden, we're looking at Ken in a different light as he's saying, naked came I from the womb, naked return I back to the grave. The Lord he gives, the Lord he takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And all of a sudden, they saw a different measure of a man. They saw a man whose faith was strong enough to commit his daughter and life and death into the hands of the Maker. And that was the beginning of healing. We were no longer like the hippie kids trying to find themselves in another country, because we could never escape that. The whole concept of missionary work was not part of, at that time, it was not part of Catholic tradition. That was for religious people. That, in my parents' eyes, meant that we were taking a vow of poverty, which we never really did. But it was just so foreign to them that they just saw us as weird, and they just couldn't wrap their minds around it. But when they saw that faith, when they saw that strength, and I'm going to reiterate, it wasn't easy. It was just the seed. And the fruit of that seed is that we were able to stay together as a family. We were able to weather a really difficult storm and come out on the other side. Now, I'm going to fast forward through lots of other years and talk about some of the fruit. They're beautiful, beautiful images in my mind. Ken's family was big. So if you can picture the big dinner table, his dad made awesome pasta, Ken inherited the gift. And we're all sitting at the table, and Ken's dad prays. All of Ken's siblings gave their lives to the Lord. It was that domino effect. And he was like, Lord, I don't deserve this blessing. All of my children are walking with you. So you have all of his kids, 5 boys and a daughter, and you have their spouses and 26 grandchildren rambling around the house, and he says, I am a rich man. And if you knew Ken's dad, that's an amazing prayer. Ken's dad, when we prepared for his funeral, we were at his parish, St. Timothy's, and we were laughing a little bit because he was a pain in the butt. He was always goading people on. He was a Eucharistic minister. He always worked hard in the church. And one of the women showed me a row of Bibles, a shelf of Bibles, and he said, see that? That's your father-in-law. He insisted that we can't go visit the sick without a Bible in hand. And I think that's amazing. All these little things that sometimes we don't always notice. And one of the most beautiful stories, my dad was going in for a quintuple bypass surgery. And he was afraid. Ken's dad reached out to him. Ken's dad gave him a call and said, hey, can I bring you communion? And when I think of the power of sharing the Lord's Supper, of breaking bread, these 2 men who in their youth could not get along. They didn't even like each other. And then as they grew older, they grew in humility. And it takes humility to serve, and it takes humility to receive that service. And my father was humble enough to say, please, please bring me communion. I really want it. There were other things that we discovered about my dad after he died. The missionary apple did not fall far from that tree. He never said anything, but he had purchased a property, a house, for his parish to use for refugees. I didn't know about it. I knew he had a house, but the express purpose was to house refugees as they were coming in from other countries until they found a place. The parish used that place. And then last year, my siblings and I were sent to Haiti. And the reason why is my father was giving consistently to Haiti, and there was a large sum of money that the family was donating to Haiti, and they wanted to meet the people from the mission. This is something my dad was doing all along. And We didn't know. So one other thing that gave me a little insight, I know that a lot of the friction, sometimes our worry looks like anger, but I had one conversation with my dad that gave me a little insight into where he was really at. We had gone to Nicaragua to live for 5 years, and we were working, teaching. Ken was working with street kids then. And then we came back, and right after we came back, 9/11 happened. And it shook me. I was like traumatized. I was really traumatized because I thought, okay, I thought I left the violence, back in Central America. I thought I came home to safety. And I called my dad and I said, Dad, I'm really scared. We live near a nuclear plant. I feel vulnerable. I'm really afraid. And he couldn't give me any sympathy. I thought, oh, this is dropping like a lead balloon. He was like, chin up, kid. And what he said to me was, you're a Christian, aren't you? And I said, yeah. He goes, so what's the worst that could happen? And then we die. He goes, so what's so bad about that? Don't you go home to be with Jesus? And I'm there, yeah. But when I read between the lines, what I was hearing was, Valerie, don't disappoint me. You're the strong one. I need you to stay strong, so cut it out. That's what he was saying. And I was chastised a little bit. I wallowed in a little bit of fear because it feels good to be real. But I had to balance it with, yeah, that's right. What's the worst that could happen? We die. Go home to be with God. So I'm going to end with this. There is a little, I have this devotional, Tim Keller devotional called Songs of Jesus. And one of the prayers at the end of it is a prayer for people as they grow older. And it says this, Lord, do not let advancing age either increase pride or worry in me. Instead, let me grow in humility as I see the increasing number of sins from which you have protected me. And let me grow in patience as I see how patient you have been with me. And I think that was the prayer that my parents and my dad prayed, and Ken's dad prayed. And that's my prayer. Thank you.
We have an amazing church. You're gonna make me cry.
That was good.